Professor Madonsela joins me now to further expand on these views. Professor, Happy New Year. Appreciate your time as always. Expand for us as quickly as you can what you meant. And I suppose my next quick question would be, well, maybe I'll allow you to expand on that before we get to the next question.
Thank you. Greetings to the viewers. Firstly, I must just indicate what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that people who struggle to access opportunities, resources, benefits, and privileges are criminals. I'm just saying a lot of the crime has to do with that. People often steal because they're hungry. People often bypass bureaucratic processes because the bureaucracy is unyielding, particularly to ordinary people. And therefore, if the Home Affairs official says, pay this, they will pay if that's the only way they're going to get what they justly deserve. And then it comes to state tenders. If you look at the history of our country since 2012, since 1994, you'll see that a whole lot of people that have benefited from state contracts, that have benefited from financing by the state, tend to be people who are connected. So the rest of society then is left in difficulties when it comes to how do you honestly rise to the top. Lastly, we're still in a country where the gatekeepers of the economy are those who benefited from colonial and apartheid laws, policies, and social schemes.
Well, the one thing that comes up is the issue of morality. Aren't there people that are poor or struggling that are moral, that obviously are not corrupt or incorruptible?
Well, the majority are actually. There is, I think, a formula that they have that says about 10% of people in the world do the right thing because it's the right thing to do and they're not corruptible. And then 80% do the right thing because they fear consequences. And I think 85% do the right thing because they fear consequences. And then 5% will do the wrong thing anyway, particularly when they know that the risk of being caught is minimal.
Now, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask, and these are posed by individuals on social media, Professor, who reacted to your tweet a few days ago. Jacques Joubert says, are the corrupt victims of an unequal society? And there's one other comment that comes in where an individual, Sepetile Ndawonde, says, how can we solve the problems you have raised? It's not enough to raise problems, but you do not even suggest a solution. So maybe if you could attend to those two comments, if you will.
Just again, two answers. The first one is that it's not only the historically discriminated that are corrupt. One of the investigations I did was at Midval. The people who were being corrupt at Midval, which is the DA-run municipality, were not historically disadvantaged. People in apartheid generally was full of corruption. So that's just one thing for sure. A lot of multinational companies from overseas are not historically disadvantaged companies, but they are corrupt. And they're not just corrupt here in South Africa, they're corrupt all over the world. But we're talking here about people who feel that the economy is skewed towards those who benefited from the past. And when we appeal to them to join us in the quest against corruption and against state capture, the question that they raise, they say, but state contracts are still skewed in favor of the historically advantaged. So what we would recommend, and I'm speaking here from the Center for Social Justice at Stellenbosch University, is that you need a certification of all laws. And every law has to be certified for regulatory impact assessment, and every law that is passed should be aligned with the Constitution in terms of making sure that it does not exacerbate existing inequalities and poverty, and that every new law, policy or program or social scheme should reduce the inequalities. And we just listened to the Deputy President of the ANC. I like the fact that the emphasis is in problem solving. But when they're now talking about ministers having to have contracts that are going to be assessed, there's no point in getting each person to come up with their own targets that are not solving any problem. I don't want to know how many jobs are created. I don't want to know how many companies have been funded. I don't want to know how much infrastructure has been created. I want to know what was the problem and what percentage of it has been resolved. And what does problem solved look like? So the governing party, wherever it's going to right now, and the DA, EFF, and all of them, they need to start thinking about what does a functional South Africa look like? And when do we intend to attain it? In terms of distribution of opportunities, resources, benefits, privileges, and burdens, what does it look like when we think that we've arrived at the South Africa that our ancestors fought for? And then everything that is done on a day-to-day basis should be justified on the basis of to what extent does it take us forward in line with the South Africa we want.
Well, Professor, we have a situation where you were speaking highly, certainly, of what some of the ANC Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, has just said in that interview. Now, juxtapose that to the Golf Day, which was held in Bloemfontein today, where individuals were expected to pay 350,000 rand to play with the ANC President in a round of golf. Now, does this further entrench the potential of corruption, if you will? Is there not an expectation that if you are paying 350,000 rand for a round of golf, that you would want that 350,000 rand to pay for itself at some point?
Absolutely, I think so. And with due respect to the governing party, and I do know that it has to raise money, but when people have to pay to sit to people according to their positions in government, there clearly is a risk that there are conversations there that are creating illegitimate expectations. I wouldn't say that those are legitimate expectations are illegitimate. And one of the things I've called for is that we need sunshine laws. In America, they came up with the idea of sunshine laws because one lawyer who eventually became a judge said, sunshine is the best of disinfectants. What would it mean in South Africa is that all government meetings must be minuted. All government meetings must be diarized. And all government meetings should be recorded. There should be an audio. So that these people that have paid for sitting with important people, we know when they've met with government. But I want you to realize, say, that it's not just these people. A lot of the policy distortions that have happened in our country, a lot of the pivoting, why we haven't implemented the Equality Act and ended up with BE, is due to these meetings that take place in the dark. So all meetings should happen in broad sunlight.
Professor, appreciate your time as always. Professor Thuli Madonsela, Director, Centre for Social Justice at the Stellenbosch University, unpacking those issues around crime and corruption.